All right. Welcome back to the Triple Doink podcast. Week one in the books. We have actual football to talk about now. Isn't this exciting? Oh, man.
One
I
for the
mean,
ages.
the loaded thumbnail alone should just tell you how thrilled we are about this.
Honestly.
We're just, oh, this is so great. It's so great to have football back in our lives. And yet,
And yet.
Antonio Brown. But, okay. Um, we'll get to all that, but first, I'm joined as always by the Minshew Garden to my fried liver attack, my friend Bryce.
Wow,
Um,
that is a deep cuts reference.
yeah,
I'm still happy with how my team did because I
yeah,
know that in the league format that we have, this is all fantasy for the viewers, by the way. You
right,
don't
yeah.
need to
For
win more than 5 games to make playoffs. So I just need to see how good my team is really right now, and I don't really care if I lose to a team that I considered was like the third best drafted.
hmm. Well, oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah,
Third
I
best
mean
drafted,
everyone
but
loses to that underprivileged unicorns in the end.
oh
But
yeah,
if I get second, I'll be happy. That guy's some dude. He got 170 points, right?
I know.
Holy sh!
Unless, no, he got 186. I'm just looking at the scores right now.
Yeah, he beat
If
my roommate actually.
he
Funnily.
did, yeah.
Oh my
If
god.
unless Nick the, okay, this is the only way that Nick's team is like going to be beaten is if a Melvin Gordon comes back and he doesn't have Austin Eckler anymore, being that effective, and then B Christian McCaffrey gets hurt and maybe one other injury, and then
No,
maybe
Mar.
he's
I
mortal.
think his tight end had a weird game, like a weirdly good game. Like he had.
Well, that's true. I mean, Mark Andrews had 108 yards and a touchdown, but the Ravens
And
aren't going to
Josh
be throwing the
Jacobs,
ball.
I don't think Josh Jacobs is gonna be able to reproduce this all year.
Probably not.
Like I think that he had a lot go right for him, and for one, no one expected Sony Michelle to be a bust.
Oh, well, okay, I wouldn't call him a bust yet. I would say that you drafted Bellatrix way too optimistically. Bellatrix is the nickname for any Patriots running back because Bill Belichick never tells you what he's going to do from week to week. Um,
Yeah, but it looked as if Sony Michelle was gonna be the
the
number
guy,
one, and
yeah,
he did start that way, but he just didn't get any yards with any carry.
out of principle, I never draft a Patriots running back. Just never because you never know. Who was the one guy a few years ago? I feel like his last name was Gray that just had a random 4 touchdown game against Indianapolis
I
and then
can't
like you
remember.
never heard from him again. Like he came out of nowhere, scored like 4 touchdowns and then went back into the ether. Like that's just the Patriots running backs. Um so anyway, yeah,
I
for
always
for
hate.
the for the listeners, Bryce and I, my team name is the Fried Liver Attack. He is the Minshew Garden. We played each other in fantasy in week one, and I actually decided to do that opening drop before I even knew that we were playing each other in week one. Um,
Uh,
but
were you gonna say Blake's Borderlights back then though?
I was, yeah. But then
Yes,
you
and
changed
then
your team
I've
name.
changed it to. I can't believe I was wearing my Minshaw jersey because I have a Minshaw jersey, right?
Yeah.
And Minshew, I guess. I guess you're right. I think it's pronounced Minshew. I just been pronouncing it
Okay.
wrong,
Well,
as
that's
normal.
okay, Bryce. You are not known for getting
Pronunciation's
pronunciation
correct.
spot
Yes.
on. I mean, as Terry Bridgewater will tell you, um, you know,
Terry, damn it.
that's still my favorite one that you've ever said is Terry Bridgewater.
Oh my god. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
much
Yeah.
much better than Casey Keenum.
Casey
Um,
Keenum. Oh fucking shit. Ah, stop! It hurts every time.
anyway, um,
I was wearing the Minshew jersey. Won't get it right for a while. I was
Mm-hmm.
wearing it as Nick Foles got hurt, and I thought, what have I done?
Yeah.
What this is all me.
Yeah, that it sucks for Nick Foles and the Jaguars, but we'll talk about all of
Ah,
that.
the
We'll talk about
Jaguars
all
might
of it.
benefit if they treat their rookie like a rookie and not like Nick Foles. You know, if Minshew has no expectations, right, and does another one of these like 90% completion percentage games,
Dude, you're trying so hard to recap the game before we're even there.
eh,
Um
I'm excited.
yeah, I understand that. Okay, so before we get into the actual games, we have to talk about all the off-field nonsense that went down just before the start of the season. Um and
I wonder
a
who
lot
this
of
could.
it a lot of it centered around the Houston Texans.
Yeah, for
Um
sure.
so as we know, they fired their GM a few months ago, and Bill O'Brien has basically been the acting general manager as well as being the head coach. And he made it very clear that he is not good at general managing uh, because he allowed the whole Jadavian Clowney situation to get out of hand. And it got so hostile to the point that Clowney made it very clear he was not playing for the Texans. And
Ryan, you're really trying hard here.
I am.
You're trying not to mention a little elephant, a tiny little elephant.
We'll get to it. It happened later. um,
I want to give the
anyway,
people what they want.
I don't even want to talk about it.
What?
I mean, we're gonna have to talk about it, but anyway, finishing up on the Texans. Clowney gets sent to Seattle for relatively little return compared to what they probably could have gotten much earlier in the offseason. Um, And then they make another trade and send a lot of draft capital to Miami, who obviously needs draft capital, in exchange for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills,
Who
um,
actually?
both of whom made a huge impact in the Monday night loss to the Saints. Um,
I felt so
but
bad for Deshaun, but I also was like, yes, the Texans lose.
mm, well, anyway, we'll talk about that game and all the others. But before we move on to Antonio Brown, any takes on the Texans stuff? I mean,
I just hope they crash and burn every year.
yeah,
So you know what? But I don't want my Minshew to be chewed out by a Clowney, and he won't. So I'm okay.
here's my main take. And first of all, Jadavian Clowney did make an impact for the Seahawks immediately. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Um, once it became clear that Clowney was not going to play for them, it made sense to try to get as much as you could for him because of course he's on the last year of his contract, and if they weren't planning on extending him, you're going to lose him after the season anyway. That said, the move to go get Tunsil was, I think, something that they absolutely needed, of course, a left tackle. But I mean, it just speaks to the ineffectiveness of that front office that they had to go spend all this draft capital to get a left tackle because they've tried for years to draft offensive linemen and haven't been able to get a quality left tackle.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously the move makes them better in the short term, but um, I don't know. I feel like they saw their opportunity with Andrew Luck retiring and decided this has to be our year, and they got they got better at the worst position on their roster. So you can't really fault them. Um, but anyway,
In any case, I think that
let's
picking up Tunsil is a dope pickup. Um,
yeah.
one that might. I can't think of any more weed references right now. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, just to be blunt,
Oh fuck.
he
That was so seamless. I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10. Oh man,
Thank you.
that was so good.
Anyway, I don't have an actual point. I just had to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to
I guess do we move on to Brown, or do you want to skip it and move on to
let's
Thursday
get
night?
the Brown thing out of the way. So
I'm with Brown.
I'm not.
I'm with good
I
players playing for good teams.
Did you listen to the most recent ATN? By the way, the one from Sunday night.
Have not yet.
Okay, I
After this, I plan
when
on
you
it.
do, and now Chris Wessling was fired up about this whole Antonio Brown thing.
I wonder,
Um,
dude. He's the guy who I will say again and again. Of all the people on that, he knows the most about football.
I agree. Um, I completely agree with where he and Hansis are coming from on this. I I don't really want to like just rehash all the things that they said on their
This is
podcasts
why I
here.
don't want to watch a podcast of the same topic before my
Well,
own. That's why I delay it.
I get that, yeah. But anyway, my take, I guess, is just that I don't like that Antonio Brown was essentially able to, in a team sport, and this is a lot of what Wessling said, but in a team sport, sabotage his team intentionally and
Epic.
then get what he wanted, which was a release and then to sign with the Patriots.
He's a
I
villain
don't,
character.
but I don't like it. I don't, it's just not good for football.
It's
And
fantastic for football. What?
no, it's not.
What is it?
No, it's not.
You think that it's gonna give like? I don't see how it could be bad. It's free advertisement basically. It's free drama. It can get people who aren't into football into football. Uh,
Yeah, but
don't see how it's bad.
for the people who like football, like me,
You mean,
it
yeah, we get a great wide receiver for Tom Brady in his waning years.
I
Okay,
have to say
great.
I now enjoy football less than I did before this happened.
Yeah,
Like
but are you gonna stop watching football?
no, but I have decided I'm going to not watch the Patriots at all this season. I like I just can't do it. I
Ah,
hate them so much and they're going to be so good. I just can't. It's
I
just not
can't
a
do that.
fun thing to
I
watch.
can't tell myself. You know what? Because of, I mean, I just want to watch good football, man, and they're gonna be great. I want to watch great football so
I
much.
understand where you're coming from, but I'm just so sick of the Patriots being good and they're
Hey, you
clearly
have
going to
three,
go
4 more years. Breathe in.
clearly they're going to go 19-0 at this point. It's just I mean, they acquire the best wide receiver in the game and without him, they blow out the Steelers on Sunday night. It's like I just I hate this in every way.
Oh, I can't believe you've done this.
Okay, there is one redeeming quality
Yes.
to all of this. And I would like to direct your attention to the podcast that we recorded on, let's see, what was the date here? On June 26th, where in our bold predictions segment, you said a Raiders player will intentionally injure another Raiders player and knock them out for the season. Now, in discussing that bold prediction, we agreed that this could be anything that comes remotely close to that, and we would count it as being right. Um, so these, I actually went back and listened to that prediction segment just
Confirm.
to make sure I got all the language correct. You had initially said it could be either intentionally injuring a player or and that player, the injured player, is out, or a player will have legal ramifications that will result in them being ejected from games after hitting a teammate or whatever. Um, and you said specifically it does not include a dirty hit on the opponent. That's the Vontaze Burfict clause. And then
That's perfect. Who's legal clause?
as we were trying to parse this out, I then suggested we should just agree to count anything that's close, and we'll discuss whether it qualifies. So now we have reached that point. Does Antonio Brown getting into a shouting match with Mike Mayock at practice and then all of
Posting
this
his fine on Instagram and then
posting his
basically saying on
fine,
social media, "Release me."
violating California wiretapping laws by playing a recording of Gruden, to, I mean, and then getting released from the team, does this qualify? I leave it up to you because you made the prediction. I think there's enough here to say you nailed it.
I mean, he literally intentionally I mean, the prediction was, does a player sabotage the Raiders who was on the
Yeah, that was
Raiders?
the spirit of it.
That is the essence of it, and he did. He did.
He
I mean,
absolutely
he
did.
did.
100%. So
I
I'm
would be,
officially
and I'd be
I
fine
am
with even not taking credit for it still, but like,
yeah.
I mean,
I imagine that we will talk about this again.
I didn't even
But
remember. I didn't even think about that. I I pseudo predicted it. That's weird.
yeah, so I'm counting that for now. So you officially have the first correct prediction. Um,
What do I get?
Pride.
Thank you. That's all I wanted. Thanks.
Yeah, you get my congratulations for a job well done. Um, okay, so let's move on to actual football, and we'll probably talk more about Brown when we get to the Patriots game.
Nah, we
But
probably won't at all. You didn't play. Why would we?
well, yeah, you may be right. Um, but anyway,
Let's get to the
yeah,
high octane offenses of the Bears and Packers.
starting with Thursday night. So of course the Packers taking on the Bears.
I
And
want
by
you
the
to
way,
guess.
before we start recapping games, I should note that our predictions from the day after the Super Bowl, week 1, we got 9 results correct out of 16.
Hey, all right.
Now, that could raise to 10 if the Bears beat the Packers later in the season.
Ah, I
Um,
see.
and it should be 10 because the Cardinals absolutely should have won that game. But we'll come yeah, we'll talk about that when we
I
get
mean,
to
the
that
Lions
game.
should have won that game, but then the Cardinals should have won that game. Both teams, can we both agree that the Lions and Cardinals both don't deserve to win?
Correct.
All right, so
I
let's
do
go into
agree
the
with you.
Packers.
However, the Cardinals should have won that game last. like
In any
um
case, I want you to guess how many teams scored either less or equal points to the Packers this week.
um Packers only scored 10 points.
Yes. How many other
Uh
teams scored
I
10 or less?
believe I believe it is 4.
Wrong.
If
It
I
is 3.
this is my quick count. It's got to be 4.
We were not counting the Packers.
Oh, we're not counting the
So,
Packers.
okay,
Well,
I guess,
then
yeah,
yeah,
you were thinking of the Dolphins, Steelers, and Bears then, weren't you?
correct. Yes,
Yes.
I was. Yeah, but yeah, the obviously the 4 worst teams in the league.
Oh, for sure.
um. Anyway, yeah. So Packers Bears. I mean, I my first takeaway if I want to go with a negative takeaway about the Packers, the offense looked bad for most of that game. They had the one play that was or the 1 yard blah, blah, blah,
The one drive.
the one drive that was like 4 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown, and like that was all they needed that game. And then late in the game, they put together a field goal drive to make it a 7 point game. Um, but the offense did look bad, and I think a lot of it is on just Rodgers and a lot of other players missing a lot of the preseason and not being in sync yet.
First game jitters. Yeah, it's just jitters.
Chris Collinsworth was talking about this during the game, and he talked about it again during the Patriots Steelers game on Sunday night about the importance of players actually needing that preseason. And it's just funny that all of the coaches in the NFL seem to take the opposite philosophy of let's just keep my entire roster healthy for week 1 and we'll figure it out.
I think that either
And
strategy
actually,
works.
Tony Romo brought up the same thing in the when I was watching the Browns Titans game. But yeah, it's interesting those different philosophies, and it's funny because it's really Bill Belichick's influence on the game because there's a reason that it seems like every year the Patriots have one or two surprising losses in September and then they finish 13-3 or 12-4. And the reason is that Bill Belichick doesn't play his starters in the preseason. He treats September as his preseason, and then by October they've figured out their team essentially. They figured out what they're going to do on both sides of the ball and they're a good team. And it seems like
That's the narrative,
obviously
at least.
obviously that strategy has worked for the Patriots um, for from several years, and now other coaches are gradually each year more and more teams are kind of following that pattern, um, and the results are mixed, but
Because
ultimately it's a lot of sloppy play in week 1.
I think
Um,
what the thing is, it's a good strategy if you have the foundation that Belichick has behind it,
yeah.
and a lot of what how Belichick plays is in line with that strategy of finding what I guess the people he has on his team are made of, and he works more for synergy and works more for game plan over raw talent because he knows that you can out scheme people
hmm Well, and Bill Belichick is, of course, the best coach
of all
to
time.
ever coach. And yeah, but I will say, I do not like what has happened with the Packers offense the last several seasons where they've come out of the gates so bad. And it's it's no coincidence that Aaron Rodgers has missed either the entire preseason or almost all of the preseason in these past several years, and that's why they're coming out of the gate slow. Ultimately, they still won this game, so I can't be too
They
upset.
got a defense, as he says.
They have a defense, and that's where I really want to spin positive. And also, I will mention the Bears defense is very good.
Probably the
So,
best in the game, yes.
um,
I
it's either the Bears or Ravens. Um,
I think we
or
can't
the
judge the Ravens
Patriots.
until they play a
Or the
football team.
Patriots. Or the Patriots.
The Ravens
Um,
can't be judged until they play a real football game.
yeah, I mean, I suppose so. But
The Dolphins look
anyway,
so bad.
we'll talk about them in a bit. But anyway, yeah, the Packers also have a defense, and their defense really impressed me. Holding the Bears to 3 points was pretty a pretty damn good start. Um,
But I think it was odd how Trubisky was his decision making this game was so odd
Yeah.
for what he's used to, because the guy's very good in clutch moments. Actually, he's an incredibly good g- uh quarterback when he is playing off what he off of like habit, off of repetition, off of what he's done in practice and what he's done throughout his entire career. But when he starts like having like a 14-point lead or something, Trubisky tends to try to experiment and try to like he doesn't trust his own rotation and his he doesn't go through the same exact reads. He forces balls into like tighter windows
Hmm.
in when he's ahead. It's the weirdest thing. It's like
It's funny. He's still.
he's
It
reverse
seems
Dak
like
Prescott.
it seems like he's still making rookie mistakes in now his third season.
This is supposed to be his breakout year, technically, which is why I
Yeah.
don't think Mayfield being bad this year is going to be too bad because, the second year drought.
Okay, but you know what? It's been 1 week. We can't say any of these
For
young
sure. Yep.
quarterbacks are really.
All I'm saying
We
is
can't.
Minshew's the best quarterback in the league. I'll look at his completion percentage.
We
Can't
we
argue.
can't. We can't say that any of these young quarterbacks have had a good or bad year after 1 week.
What do you mean? I just did.
Yeah, the Brown season is over,
Yeah,
guys.
come
Um,
on. 0-16 again.
but anyway, yeah, I will. I'm sure we'll discuss the Packers more on this podcast. But I am super impressed with the defense. Um, oh, another note in this game is Eddie Pinheiro, the Bears kicker, 1 for 1 on field goals, one for
Unfortunately.
two, 1 for 2 on kickoffs. um,
Huh?
I just wanted to bring that up.
What do you mean
Um,
1 for 2 on kickoffs?
After the Bears made their field goal, which was a big sigh of relief for Bears fans, uh, Pinheiro immediately
Oh, yeah.
the ensuing kickoff kicked it out of bounds.
I
So
remember that.
that made me so incredibly happy.
It was the
Um,
funniest thing in the world.
I was really rooting for, honestly. I said this to my dad before the game because I was watching with my dad. I was like, with all the drama around the Bears kickers, I really hope that the opening kickoff goes out of bounds. And it didn't. It was a touchback. But then the
Second
next
one.
kickoff, the only other one in the game, went out of bounds. And that was nice. So anyway, that was an interesting note. Definitely not the worst kicker situation in the league right now, um, as the Jets will tell you. But yeah,
It wasn't just
so
the Jets who had a bad one. The
no,
Colts
it
might have
wasn't
a word
just.
with you.
Yeah, well, it's still Vinatieri though. Um,
Oh, oh, he looked so bad.
he, we'll talk about them. We got to stop jumping ahead. So let's move on to the Sunday games. We may as well start with Chiefs and Jaguars.
All
I'll
right.
let you give your take on this.
So up until the fourth quarter, I believe this is a correct statistic to go by. The Jaguars defense forced the Chiefs to punt. Never.
Hmm.
They failed to stop them from driving down the field on every single possession.
Hmm.
Uh
Yeah, I would have to check that, but that sounds legit.
let's see. I'm looking touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, and then the fourth quarter they forced a punt.
Wow.
And then it was field goal and then end of fourth quarter. So
Wow. So
one
one
punt
punt.
in the last parts of the game, and immediately after, Minshew threw his one and only interception, like on the next play. I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't play like offensively. They played incredibly well with clock with everything they had. Likewise, the Jaguars only punted the ball twice the entire game.
Hmm.
First possession of the game, Nick Foles then drives the touchdown, gets hurt for 11 weeks. It's been confirmed he can't come back until week 11, maybe longer.
Hmm.
Uh, then
Yeah.
it's field goal with Minshaw, field goal on Minshaw with Minshaw on the drive.
Hmm.
End of half with 2-play drive. Then it was that drive where they're going down the field and Fournette fumbled it, and then they punt the ball again, and then they have 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So,
Mm,
I mean, what killed the Jaguars this game, I think, was just the pure incompetence and pure lack of discipline that was on display throughout the entire
yeah.
game. And what I mean by that is basically penalties and ejections were the
Hmm.
real killers. We had like several like 3 third downs that were just stopped, that were brought back because of like an unsportsmanlike conduct, because of a weird pass interference call or illegal contact that just randomly was on the field. Then you go on offense, then our offensive line held on like every single drive at least twice or something. It was incredibly like disgusting how many penalties just came out.
Hmm.
And it might be just a week one, but I've seen this. Like the Jaguars are just not a disciplined team. They've never been good in that department, and it always scares me because
Yeah.
I I think they believe that their quarterbacks are supposed to do that job for them because they drafted Nick Foles and Minshew. Well, I mean, they traded for Nick Foles and drafted Minshew. And those are both what is known about both of these players is that they're incredibly good leaders. Like that is what Minshew is most known for, is being like the like driving force in a locker room, even with Nick Foles in the same exact
Oh, so he's like a Jake Brisket type.
brisket. Ah man, I don't want to say anything about him, but I think he played well. Um, yeah, but Minshew, Washington State quarterback, already got his jersey. Had it before the
All right.
season started. I have faith in him.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback. And although we did lose to the Chiefs, who are arguably a Super Bowl contender and who we have personally winning the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
scoring 26 points with a backup quarterback in his first ever NFL game,
Yeah.
with
I
Leonard Fournette underperforming.
I have to say, like, this was an ugly performance by the Jaguars defense, but it might be the inverse of like the Ravens offense, where we don't really know how good they are. Because like the Ravens, it's because they played such a terrible Dolphins defense, but in this case, it's like it's because they played just a great Chiefs offense, and we don't really know yet if they're going to be a good defense. Um, they still
Uh,
could be.
it might be that, but I mean, Miles Jack getting ejected, stuff like that.
That was terrible. I mean, that was just
I had the same thing happen last season, by the way. Except
yeah.
it was Leonard Fournette, and what he did was he took like a Bills helmet
I
off and then
remember.
just
Yeah.
punched him in the face.
Yep. I remember that.
But Miles
I
Jack literally, I've never seen a player fight refs to try to get on to be like, nah, I'm not leaving the field. I ain't leave.
yeah.
I've never seen a player do that. Holy shit.
That was that was an ejection that I think would make an Ndamukong Suh proud. Um, that was something. But
You stay.
anyway,
When I say stare, you say oids. Stare, oids.
um, on the Chiefs side though, their offense did look good. Sammy
Yeah,
Watkins
Tyreek Hill
looked
looks
looked very
fantastic.
good. Tyreek Hill got hurt though.
I know. I'm
Um,
joking.
that's big, and he's going to miss probably at least a couple weeks. Um,
I wonder
he
if that's
was
out. Actually,
actually
let's see.
yeah. You could look that up
I'll look
while we
that up.
talk about this. Um, so ultimately, they lost the player that they were expecting to not have anyway. So I mean,
Back at
we'll
square
see.
one.
Back at square one, we'll see how they do. I mean, they're 1-0, so that's a pretty good start. Um, and Mahomes just looked like he picked up right where he left off last season. He looked very good in this game. Um, so not a lot to complain about if you're a Chiefs fan, other than the Hill injury. Um, well, and I suppose your defense giving up uh, a lot of yards to Gardner Minshew. But um, anyway,
Mm.
Any news on Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek Hill had an injury in game where he landed on the shoulder. He had sternal clavicle joint injury. Blah blah blah. Black medical issue. He's posterity. He didn't have medical issues and transported him to the Baptist Medical Center. Blah 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 blah. We'll give you an update in the next day or two. This was posted on September 8th, so
It's been
soon.
2 days. Where's the damn update?
This is a rare injury. It's the same one with the Packers wide receiver Jake Kumaro had last year and missed about 2 months. No timetable for Tyreek Hill yet.
Okay. And by the way, with Nick Foles' injury, this is similar to.
He will likely avoid IR.
Well, really? Because if they said he can't be back until week 11, why wouldn't they put him on IR boomerang? Like that just. Oh, or were you talking about Hill will avoid IR?
Tyreek Hill, yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Foles because I just brought up
Oh,
Foles again.
no.
Nick Foles' injury though is very similar to the one that Aaron Rodgers had a couple years ago, and also that Aaron Rodgers had a couple years before that. And Rodgers was not able to get back into form until the following season in either of those cases. So that was if that's a roadmap for Foles, that looks pretty bleak.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is his non-throwing shoulder, so that's a good thing. But even so, it's going to be a long recovery, and the Jaguars are going to have to make do in the meantime. So moving on, you mentioned that penalties really killed the Jaguars in this game. They weren't the only team that got killed by penalties. So 18 penalties, 182 yards, 6 personal fouls among those penalties, and their left tackle got ejected. I am talking about the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that's the Browns. Yeah.
That's the Browns.
Because the game was winnable until those kept racking up, and then randomly the Tennessee Titans were up by 40 points, and I'm like, wasn't this like a one-score game for like 3 quarters?
I saw a YouTube video of a compilation of all 18 Browns penalties, and it was like as long as the normal highlight videos for these football games.
Discipline is really crucial for a team, and I thought that was what Freddie Kitchens was going to bring.
This game, honestly, what was the final score? It was like
43-13.
43-13. So, I mean, they lost by 30 points, but it was actually a lot closer than it looked. Until pretty much the end of the third quarter, the Browns were right in it. They scored a touchdown, their second touchdown. And at the time, I believe that made it a 2-point game, if I'm not mistaken.
I will look this up and you keep talking.
I believe, if I remember correctly, that the Browns made it 13-15 at the time.
It was a 13-15 game, and then the Titans scored a touchdown, which made it a 22-13 game, and then 21 points were scored unanswered in the fourth.
Here's what's interesting. The missed extra point on the Browns' first touchdown was absolutely huge. Because imagine that they make that extra point.
Yes.
So then the Titans, they score their first touchdown, 7-7. Then the Titans get a safety and 2 field goals. So now it's 15-7. The Browns then have a chance with a 2-point conversion to tie the game on that second touchdown.
And with their personnel, I think it's likely they would.
Yeah, good chance that they do. Then the Titans immediately answer with the long Derrick Henry touchdown, it's still just a one score game. What was killer for the Browns is that after that Henry touchdown, it goes back to being a 9 point game. And now it's a two-score game. And then Baker tries to press it and throws an interception immediately. And
I mean, the
I believe
Titans
he
had 28 points unanswered at the last
but the Browns self-destructed to allow that.
yeah, that it was
The
literally just like that's what that says when the game's close and then that happens. It's usually just one
Yeah.
side, essentially something like the cap fell off.
hmm But yeah, Baker I think was just trying to do too much in a situation where his team was down two scores. And I think if it's a 1 point or excuse me, a one score game, I don't know if he presses like that. I think he
It's also
and
week. I mean, again, the week
this is
one
not my
strife.
take. This is not my take, by the way. This is something that Tony Romo said during the game. He was talking about how if it's a one score game, I think Baker keeps his composure and makes smart decisions. And I've got to agree. I mean, that missed extra point was huge, but obviously not the only reason the Browns lost. The main reason was all those penalties.
This looked like one of those Madden games you play where you're just frustrated at like random scripted events that happen. You just like
hmm
start playing super rash. You go for it on fourth down. You randomly are like, just like, no, I need the ball, so I'm just gonna
hmm
blitz every play. I'm just, it felt like that energy, I guess, and not that that was the game plan in any way.
Yeah. Um, And by the way, the Greg Robinson ejection for kicking a player in the head as he was going to the ground, um, ridiculous.
Yeah,
Another one that would make Ndamukong Suh proud. Um, that was
yeah, that's my
that was that
funny.
was terrible. I mean, I how are you that stupid? Like I just don't get it. Like
Uh
how do players get that dumb?
I've already said the answer. It's called
I
steroids.
that's I don't know.
It's called steroids. Just
Anyway,
we don't have to talk about it, but yes, it's called steroids.
um that's really it for the Browns. On the Titans side, I mean, they, to their credit, they had a good offensive game plan.
Props to them.
Um,
Yeah.
they got the benefit of a lot of penalties, but they took advantage of their opportunities. So, I mean, good game for the
Let's just say
Titans.
that 43 points is not reproducible for this offense.
I would agree. Yeah,
Yes.
let's see them do it again, and then I'll give them credit. Um,
I
but anyway,
they played good enough to win against a team that didn't want to win.
hmm
And I think
um,
that is the description of the game. And I don't know if we have to talk about anything else other and then Derrick Henry, I guess.
yeah. So this game, the Browns Titans, was, I said, closer than the score would indicate. A game that was not as
We
close
don't
as the
need to
score
talk
would
about the Ravens
indicate.
Dolphins. We only talk about football games here.
I wasn't going to them, but
Oh,
thank you. Um,
dang it.
I do have a couple things to say about that game, but not yet.
All right.
Um, a game that was not as close as the score would indicate was the Rams and Panthers. The final was
Yeah.
30-27 Rams, but the I it was a garbage time touchdown for the Panthers that brought them within three. And even before that, they were the Rams were just far superior in this game. Um, Again, it's the whole factor of none of their starters playing in the preseason led to some sloppy play. And that's what allowed the Panthers to stay close. But
I actually
ultimately,
think this is who the Panthers are. Like though, you know,
how so?
I don't see I think this is the Panthers' floor and ceiling on their offense and defense. I don't think is that particularly like they don't have that much depth in between the two. So if this is their floor, I don't see them climbing that much.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
And the Rams, on the other hand, like if this is their floor, I think not only is their floor really high, they have a long way to go as well.
Yeah. Um, and despite the fact that the Panthers lost this game and were not very impressed by their team in general, we did put Christian McCaffrey on our thumbnail, and for good reason. He had a hell of a game in this loss.
He played
Um,
like he was 11 players.
he was well over half of the Panthers' total offense in this game, and I feel like that. You said this before the podcast, but I feel like that's going to be what their team is this season.
It's Christian
Um,
McCaffrey. He had more yards than Jared Goff.
he did. Um,
He had more touchdowns than Jared Goff.
and
Holy.
for the also with the Panthers, Cam Newton looked like, in terms of throwing the ball, he looked like what we expect from Cam Newton, where he's not like particularly accurate, but he can sling it.
And he didn't
Um,
rush at all.
he didn't, no, and that was, of course, he's been limited with an ankle injury, so it's good to know that his shoulder seems okay. He's back to normal in that regard, but he's still not. He doesn't have necessarily the mobility that he would like, and that severely limits the Panthers' offense because they need Cam Newton to make plays on the ground if they're going to have success moving the ball.
They have an aging tight end, Greg
They
Olson,
did,
who isn't
by the
who
way.
it was anymore.
One of their touchdowns was interesting. I've never seen this. McCaffrey took the snap directly and faked the handoff to Newton and then ran in. That I've never seen that
But
before.
that's a perfect description of the Panthers' offense. Holy shit, that is a metaphor in a metaphor.
It kind of is. I that was I actually, when I was watching the highlights of this game, and most of these, by the way, I really only know what happened from watching the highlights. Um,
Lazy.
but but in watching the highlights of this game, I had to like rewind that play afterwards, and I was like, because the announcer said McCaffrey takes the direct snap, and I was like, okay, that's not too unusual. You see that. But then I had to go back and I'm like, wait, who did he fake the handoff to? Then, oh, he faked the handoff to the quarterback.
Of
Um,
course.
and by the way, watch later this season at some point, the Panthers will have a play where they run that exact same thing, but he does give it to Newton, and Newton throws like a long touchdown
Or
pass.
Newton fumbles it and they never do it again.
One of the two. Um,
Which he did do this game. He did fumble it.
mm. So on the Rams side, it may not look like it on the stat sheet, but this was a good game for Todd Gurley. Um, Malcolm Brown, of course, scored both of the Rams rushing touchdowns. So, for fantasy owners of Gurley, that sucks. But ultimately, Gurley did play better than Malcolm Brown. Much better yards per carry. He had a couple of nice runs late, and late in the game when they were looking to seal it and put the game away, Gurley was the guy.
If you only
So
need to give Gurley the ball 14 times to win a football game, I would
yeah,
give it to him only that many times for now until like December. If they can
hmm
make it to December with like 9 wins, I don't think they're gonna stop this.
yeah, and we've talked about Gurley in the past on this podcast, and I've said I think the Rams are going to manage him quite a bit this season, only use him when they need him, and I still believe that's true, and I think that it's the right thing for them to do. Um, so, like I said, this game was not. It shouldn't have been a 3-point game. The Rams gave the Panthers a lot of added opportunities, and even with that, the Panthers couldn't win. So, I feel fairly confident about where we have these two teams predicted to go. Um,
Yeah, especially because the
I
Panthers seem to have a harder division than we thought. It doesn't seem as
mm,
though the Saints have faltered at all from what they were.
well, yeah, and we'll see. Um, the uh, the interesting thing I found is that everybody else who I hear talking about the Panthers seems to be talking them up.
Yeah,
We
everyone's
see.
thinks
We
they're
seem to
good.
be the only two people on the planet who think that they're going to flame out this season. Um, but anyway, um, we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. And they do play on Thursday night against the Buccaneers, by the way, at home. So
They should win that, though.
I think they will. Um,
Depends on how Bruce Arians can Bruce Arians coach them up.
yeah, and we'll speak about the Buccaneers a little bit more later. Slogging through the early games on Sunday, Ravens Dolphins. Um, I don't want to say too much about this, but
Yikes!
here's my big question that I have for the Baltimore Ravens is in the second quarter, up 35-3. Why in the world do you run a fake punt?
I thought that was the funniest thing when I saw it.
But like, here's the thing:
No one expects.
fake punts are like a gimmick type play. You run it once, and then it's on film, and the opponents going forward can study it, and they know like you can't use that same fake punt again. So why do you waste it in a game where you're up 32 points and it's not even halftime?
They could use it again.
They
Who?
can fake a punt again, but they're not going to use that exact play again.
I don't think that's. I think you're reading into this game way too much. It actually looked like a college team playing an NFL team.
I mean, it did.
It looked like the most embarrassing excuse for a football team
Yeah.
playing a team that might make the playoffs.
I mean, Lamar Jackson looked like I was really
He
impressed. I
he
mean,
looked
it's
like
hard to
Louisville.
tell.
Yeah, he looked like Louisville Lamar Jackson actually.
It's hard to tell. And again, we'll learn more about these teams in the next couple weeks, but it's hard to tell whether it was Lamar Jackson looking good or just the Dolphins defense making him look good. And I think that some of the throws he made, he was not making last season. You know,
I mean, he didn't
he
run at all either.
no, he really didn't, and he's so much better from the pocket than he was last season in this game, and I'm
Dude,
impressed.
can we talk about Rob though? Like 6 for 6, touchdown, 55 yards.
Wait, what?
Robert Griffin III.
Oh, well, that's why I'm like hesitant to really give
Yeah,
heap a lot of praise on Lamar Jackson. Is RG3 had success against this defense too.
he
Um,
had perfect success.
and by the way, we did see both Griffin and Josh Rosen in this game. Rosen came in the second half, did not look very good.
Lamar Jackson
But again, playing
scored a
against one.
touchdown every fourth time he threw the ball.
Hmm.
What an
But
embarrassing football team. I don't want to talk about the Dolphins anymore.
the last thing I'll say about them is I was saying Josh Rosen didn't look good, but it's hard to look good when you're playing behind an offensive line that just lost its only good player, and on top of that, you're playing the Ravens defense. So I I just feel really bad for Josh Rosen.
He should
Um,
never get starting time. He needs to learn
I
behind people. He
I
can't.
texted you. I texted you when the Dolphins traded Tunsil to the Texans, and I just said, "Damn, Josh Rosen cannot get a break."
Yeah. I mean,
And
he might get a break, but in his arm, maybe.
yeah, he's gonna get a break in one of his bones. Um, I feel really bad for the kid because like if you look at the other four quarterbacks drafted in the first round, all of them ended up in ultimately really good situations to like have a chance to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Baker with the Browns, Darnold with the Jets, Allen with the Bills, and Lamar Jackson. And Rosen just never had a chance. He got drafted onto a terrible Cardinals team that then completely revamped their coaching staff after one season, and the new coaching regime shipped him out to a team that has again no opportunities for him. I I really hope he gets his shot, but he I feel like he's going to be broken by the time he does, if not physically, mentally.
We'll see. It's hard to
It
judge.
is. But anyway, moving on to a real football game.
The Bills and
Um,
Jets.
no, well, that's the next one on my list is somewhat of a real football game. Falcons at Vikings. Um, so here's my takeaways from this. Now, first of all, as you know, I started the Falcons kicker against you in fantasy,
Zero
and
points.
he did not attempt to kick. It's not that he like missed a field goal. He didn't even attempt to kick. Not a field goal, not an extra point. That's how bad the Falcons offense was. Um, the Vikings defense, to their credit, looked very good in this game, and Dalvin Cook looked pretty good running the ball. And the Falcons offense just could not get it going. Um, they put together one good drive, first possession of the second half, and it ended with Matt Ryan throwing an interception in the end zone. So that was really their only good drive up to that point. And they couldn't do anything offensively. They scored two touchdowns in garbage time, went for two uh, on both occasions and failed on both occasions. Um, and just a dominant game by the Vikings. I was surprised. I did not expect, like, it's not that I didn't expect the Vikings to play well. It's just that I didn't expect the Falcons to be this bad.
I thought that it was. I mean, I think it goes to show how strong the North is this season. Because I
Hmm.
think every single team has the potential to finish first in the
Um,
division.
I'm sorry. I know we haven't talked about it yet, but did you see the Lions game?
Even so, even so, like just from raw talent on that roster, they could finish first. Still, it's
Okay. It's still a young season. There's still plenty of time for the Falcons to turn it around. Um, and it doesn't get easier though. They are hosting the Eagles next week. So that's going to be another test. The Eagles have a pretty good defense too. Hopefully for the Falcons, they can get something going. Um, do you have any other takes on this game, or should we move on?
I don't really have. I of all the morning games, this one I saw the least. But every time
Okay.
I was looking through, like around the second quarter and stuff, I mean, Dalvin Cook managed. They managed him really well. He looked incredibly strong.
He did. He
Like
looked very good.
it's unbelievable that he's come back from injury this well. Like I didn't not expect this guy
Yeah,
to.
what is with the Vikings being able to like bring back running backs from ACL injuries? Like you remember what Adrian Peterson did coming off an ACL?
I don't know. They just whatever they're giving them. Can I have some? I have a little back pain,
Hmm.
just a little bit, please.
Yeah. Um. So moving on then to maybe the biggest surprise outside of the Browns this week, which was the Jets and Bills. Um.
I don't think it was a surprise. I mean, the Bills' defense is insane.
Are they though?
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna look at this roster. I'm gonna tell you
Is
some names, just names in general, and also they remember they finished a top 10 defense last year.
okay.
Remember, so if we go down, I'm gonna go down. Lorenzo Alexander, right. You got Jerry Hughes. You got Tremaine Edmonds, right? Tre'Davious White.
So far, okay, you got Tre'Davious White, but prior to that, you were 0 for 3 on pronouncing names correctly.
About to say, I'm like, these all are good. Oh, and then you're like, no, it's just yeah. They have Micah Hyde, who you should know isn't actually that bad of a guy, and
Micah Hyde is really good. I was actually really sad when he left the Packers. He was one of my favorites. Him and Casey Hayward both. But anyway,
Imagine like this is their secondary is almost impossible to throw against, and then they got like Jordan Poyer and Matt Milano up in the front seven. Like I think this team, like they're incredibly good on defense. They're
yeah, their
incredibly
defense
good.
is actually like really, really underrated. It's not talked about as being a
Well,
top
no one's
defense,
gonna
but
talk
they're
about the
pretty good.
Bills.
Yeah, their defense is pretty good.
And
Um,
also, John Brown, I drafted him in my fantasy league. He's underrated as well. Just saying.
mm,
Especially with somebody like Josh Allen who loves to just throw these deep balls randomly.
yeah. Um, I will point out the Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times in the first half. Um, the four turnovers in order were a strip sack, then a pick six that went off of Cole Beasley's hands, then a bad snap, a botched snap. Not really sure whose fault it was, whether it was the quarterback or center, but ended up in a loose ball.
Miscommunication, maybe week one jitters. Who knows if it continues? We'll note that.
Who knows? Who knows? And then the last one was a interception that was deflected at the line and then intercepted. Of those 4 plays, I would say that
The last one in the strip sack are his fault.
the last one is firmly his fault. The strip sack is a field awareness thing. Um, I generally will fault the quarterback on those. However, if the offensive line is bad, you know. But in this case, yeah, okay, that one was his fault. The interception off of Beasley's hands wasn't a great throw, but it should have been caught.
If it's in your hands, you catch it. That's the rule of being a receiver.
Yeah, it was a low throw. He could have definitely put it in a much better spot, but the receiver should have caught it. And then the bad snap, who knows? So I really don't know if you can. I don't think you can fault him for all of these. You can definitely fault him for 2, maybe 3. Um, and that said, the as I mentioned, they turned the ball over 4 times in the first half. The Jets had 1 turnover in this game, and I believe it's only happened like less than 10 times in NFL history that a team has lost a game after winning the turnover margin by +3 or greater.
Really?
It's I think I could be wrong on this,
I
but
don't think
that
it's that extreme.
it's it does not happen very often for a team to be +3 in turnovers and lose a football game. That's that's pretty terrible. I mean, the fact that their offense got so many extra opportunities because of these turnovers and couldn't do anything with it.
Another thing,
Their
Jamison
offense just
Crowder
looked
looked
bad.
basically like the majority of the Jets' offense, which was odd to me.
Well, I think the Bills game planned pretty well to take away Robbie Anderson and
I mean, a
the
lot of the throws to Robbie Anderson that Sam Darnold threw were actually super inaccurate. It's
yeah,
like he
he did
misjudged his
miss
speed on a lot of them. Like he just didn't know his receiver didn't go that fast or something.
he did miss some throws to Anderson, and I wonder again if this is players missing preseason time. But um, but yeah, he missed a few throws to Anderson. Crowder was definitely the best wide receiver the
14
Jets had on the
receptions.
day. Um,
He didn't even crack 100 yards.
he is. I
He
mean,
was just a check down guy.
he's the slot receiver. He's gonna get those checkdowns. And Le'Veon Bell looked pretty good, so I'll give that to the Jets.
Le'Veon
He
Bell
looked
looked
good.
like, I mean, returned form.
He looked good running the ball. He
It's just
caught
that
a
you're playing
touchdown.
against the Bills. It's really like who knows? I guess
So
Robbie Anderson did not look good.
the biggest thing that killed the Jets in this game was the kicker. And now he he missed on the pick six in the first quarter. He missed the extra point, and it actually stayed 6-0 for a really long time. But he missed as the extra point, and then they line up for a field goal later, and I when I saw it, I thought it was blocked, but it turns out it was not blocked. That's just how bad the kick was.
And they
It
missed
was
the field
just
goal.
so far off and short. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
And so he misses that kick. The Jets later get a safety on defense. So I mean their defense scored 8 points. Um and uh and the Jets finished the game with 16 points.
Yeah.
But interestingly, they then score their late touchdown. So after Bell catches the touchdown, they're up 14 to nothing at that point.
8-16.
No, 14 to
And
nothing.
then they go for okay,
They
yeah.
decide to go for two, which is a really interesting decision. It just shows that they have zero trust in their kicker. And I feel like that was a bad decision. I think they should have let him kick because what it does is it tells the Bills, and of course the Bills hadn't scored yet, so the Jets were actually feeling pretty good about this game. But it tells the Bills that you don't trust your kicker. And when the Bills made it interesting again, and when they were driving down to take the lead, in the back of their minds, they've got to be thinking the Jets don't want to kick a field goal on their last drive. They don't want to put it in the hands, or rather at the feet of their kicker. They a game-winning field goal is not a good option for them. That had to be going through the minds of the coaching staffs of both teams, and that's a huge factor. And give credit to the Bills. In the second half, their offense came alive. They were down 16 nothing, and then scored 17 unanswered points to win 17-16. Um, Heartbreaking loss for the Jets. Uh,
But it's poetic for how the Jets usually.
yeah, it and
Dan
honestly,
Hansis somewhere is crying himself to sleep.
I am happy for this Bills team. I really do like Sean McDermott, their coach. I think he's done a really good job, and it's been kind of underrated how well he's done there with what they had when he arrived. Um, but that said, I was hoping that the Jets would be very good this season. I'm still hopeful of that, but getting off to this bad start, their schedule is rough in the first half. Um, and you don't want to start 0-1 when you have to go up against the teams that they're facing the next few weeks. Next week now, I can't believe this, but either the Jets or Browns will be 0-2, and it sucks.
The Jets are playing who next week?
The Browns.
Hmm.
One of them is going to be 0-2, or they'll tie. um, One of them will be winless, uh, and that sucks because these are two teams that we thought were going to be good this season, and 0-2 is not how you want to start. Um, but anyway, any more thoughts on the Jets and Bills game?
I think the takeaway from it for me, more than anything, was that the Bills have a really good defense,
Yeah,
and Josh Allen is who I thought he was. He
either
has
they
not
have a really
shown.
good defense, or
No,
or the Jets
no.
offense is bad, or more likely a combination of the two. And
I think it's
I don't think the Jets have a bad offense. I just think that they're out of sorts right now. And I think that it might take them too long to get things sorted out, and they might miss their chance this season.
we'll see.
All
Who
right.
knows? I guess, but I think the Bills defense is legit.
So moving on, one of the early surprises on Sunday was the Washington Racists jumping out to a lead against the Eagles, and
McLaurin's a
ultimately,
real deal talent on wide receiver.
yeah, you really like him. And I
He
mean,
I mean, it doesn't matter who's throwing to him. He's 100% the best receiver on their offense, and
I mean,
everyone's going to throw to him.
he flashed on that one touchdown, and then
He was given
Keenum
two more
just missed
opportunities.
him
They were
on
just
another one.
yeah.
Um, so
He was just overthrown a few times, which sucked.
yeah, he looked like a legit deep threat.
He literally should have had 6 receptions for 150 yards and
But
2 touchdowns. Like that would have been
speaking of a legit deep threat in this game, welcome back to Philadelphia, Deshaun Jackson.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God. Um,
10 targets, 154, 2 touchdowns.
that is, I mean,
Darren
I was,
Sproles, number one. I don't know why.
I don't know why this offense is like,
Just
it's
throwback.
hilarious to me that like they're rolling with Darren Sproles and Deshaun Jackson as their two biggest playmakers.
Okay, Miles Sanders is a great playmaker. I'm just gonna say that right now. Give him time. He's their number one right now in the backfield. Even he'll
It's
be
a
good.
very crowded backfield, and they are definitely going with the committee approach. They're going to ride the hot hand. Um,
I'm telling you, Miles Sanders is legit. He's a fiend.
yeah.
I'm all aboard that
But
hype train.
ultimately, once the Eagles' offense got going, they looked good. It took them a bit to get going, and to their credit, they came back, and Washington ultimately could not sustain their early pace. They after a while, the Eagles started getting stops on defense, and then the offense just, I mean, they just took off. The the two deep touchdowns to Deshaun Jackson were nice to see. Alshon Jeffrey scored twice. The second time was actually a running play. It was a backwards
Yeah.
pass from the 2 yard line. So, um, but it was good to see Jeffrey and Jackson both find the end zone, and yeah, the offense just looked good once they got going. And Carson Wentz, I believe when we were discussing MVPs, Carson Wentz was my candidate, um, and I feel pretty good about that here. Um, this offense is just scary good, and the defense is not bad either.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I think well the only surprise I guess was that the Redskins have a really nice offense actually.
yeah,
It's
the,
an incredibly heavy passing game because you have Chris Thompson who's always been that pass
mhm,
runner. Always has. Which is why he's usually a PPR threat
yeah,
for fantasy. And Terry McLaurin, I'm telling this guy, they're gonna be. This team is gonna be like if Nick Foles was on the Redskins, or if Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the Redskins, they would get so many like points.
um, there were a couple other things I wanted to mention about this game. So Deshaun Jackson, before the touchdowns, probably should have been ejected from this game for slapping another player. Um,
Shh, we don't
just
talk about that.
knucklehead. Um, by the way, I think it's a really stupid distinction in the rules here that if you slap a player with an open hand, you won't get ejected, just a penalty. But if you hit them with a fist, then you get ejected. And
It's more intimidating.
we saw that play out. I mean, Miles Jack got ejected because he punched a guy, and we saw a couple different players on Sunday slap people and not get ejected. And it's just a really stupid distinction to me. Um, it should either be, well, honestly, the way it should be is if you hit somebody, you're gone. That's how it should be. But anyway,
Eh,
um, the only other note I had on this game is Adrian Peterson was inactive for the Redskins today.
he
Or
was.
I'm sorry, Sunday. for the racists, not the Redskins. I don't say Redskins. Um, Adrian Peterson was inactive, and it's pretty clear that Jay Gruden does not want him around. If you, I'm gonna look this up really quick. Jay Gruden's post game comments.
I didn't even hear any of this, mostly because I guess the Reds. I mean, I was just looking at the wide receivers for the Redskins, and I just thought McLaurin was. I'm so glad I drafted him. All I'm saying.
Hang on a second. This is just being difficult on me. I should have looked this up beforehand. This is on me. Oh my god, load already. Okay. So this is some of what he said. Uh Dang it. Okay, hang on. This website is being really dumb right now.
What website are you using?
Okay, here's some of his comments. Um okay, that doesn't really, that's not what I was looking for. God damn it. Okay, here we go. He said of Adrian Peterson, Jay Gruden, the Redskins head coach, he's a first and second down back. So is Darius, referring to Darius, guys. So really, what do we have? About 20 first downs a game. Probably 8 of those are passes. 12 of those might be runs. Darius can handle those 12. So if we have a game where we think we can run the ball 55 times in a game in an I formation, then sure, I'll get him up. Referring to Peterson. So ultimately, he just doesn't want Adrian Peterson on this roster because he feels he doesn't need him. And he has no control over the roster because um, the Washington front office is a mess. So yeah, Jay Gruden frustrated, of course, and I feel like this is just more evidence for my prediction about 3 NFC East coaches getting fired at the end of this year. Um, but anyway, that's that.
If that's, I mean, again, that prediction always on one person alone, and
Mm,
that is if Dallas makes the playoffs or not, which you
yeah,
do predict won't.
yeah, that Dallas this week looked pretty good, so that sort of has me a little nervous
Do
about
you
that
want to talk
prediction.
about that game right now?
Uh, I have Colts Chargers up next, so let's talk about that one. That was an exciting game.
Aye.
Whoa, was that an exciting game? Um, so the first note, of course, it did go to overtime, and the Chargers won the coin toss in overtime, went down the field, scored a touchdown, game over. Um, that said, Vinatieri did miss an extra point and 2 field goals in this game. He did not look good,
And
and
Colts played better than the Chargers, in my opinion.
they did.
The Colts were a
They
better
came
team
back.
and lost.
They came back late, and yeah, The Colts played really well with Jake Brisket at the helm,
I
and
didn't think they wouldn't. I still think they're gonna be a
no,
playoff
I
contender, which sucks for
yeah,
me. I don't like the Colts.
like we talked about last time. This team is still a good team even without their superstar quarterback. Um, I will say that the interception in the end zone by Malik Hooker, the one-handed interception, was that was Odell Beckham esque, that catch. Um, that was incredible, and for it to be a defensive player too, where the ball isn't intended for you, and to make that play, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and Also the touchdown that ultimately ended up tying it. It was an 8-point game. The Colts score a touchdown. They make the 2 point conversion. But that touchdown play by T.Y. Hilton was what an effort by Hilton on that play. That
I
was
can't like. I just don't want the Colts to be good, but I know they are. I know they're such a good.
look. I know you don't like the Colts, but I do like the Colts.
I believe in. There is, you know how there is the like Captain Luck Twitter account. You know,
Hmm.
there is one for Jacoby Brisket.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only thing I root for every week is for that account to be saddened by a loss.
Mm. I let me put it this way. I feel about the Colts the way you do about the Bears.
Huh?
Does that make sense?
No.
Like,
Explain.
I like the Colts, despite the fact that they're a team that you hate because they're in your division.
Well,
Just as you,
okay, I guess.
just as you like the Bears.
I also like the Lions, though.
I like the Lions. That's I'm the one who predicted them to have the top wide receiver tandem. Um, but anyway, and
How's
the
that
the final.
prediction looking, by the way?
I haven't checked the numbers. What it's looking like though, well, we'll come to that. That game's coming up. Um, my last takeaway of the Colts and Chargers is that Melvin Gordon is not getting paid.
Melvin Gordon's gonna come back to practice with his head down, like, oh,
I mean,
can I
he
get
is
one
like,
carry?
I mean, Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson both played really well, and honestly, the longer Gordon stays away, if the running game continues to look like this, I mean, they don't need him. Like they they just don't need him. Uh, and this has got to be, I mean, biggest loser of the week, other than Nick Foles, is Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, he might be on Biggest Loser the way he sits on the couch. Like,
Yeah.
man.
Um. So anyway, that's all I had for that game. Let's move on to a surprising game for a couple different reasons. The Bengals at the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Um. First of all, this Bengals defense is sneaky good.
Hmm.
We may have underrated their defense by quite a bit. Um, and it's worth noting that they were super banged up last year. Their defense played really well early, and then they suffered a lot of injuries, and then they were terrible. Um, but with all those guys healthy, and they returned almost all of their key players from last year, they look like a good team. It's
Except,
weird.
why the fuck is Joe Mixon AF like just like where is he?
Yeah, I
Why
don't
does Andy
know.
Dalton need to throw the ball 50 times when you have Joe Mixon on your team? Why I like
Yeah, I don't know.
that was
Um,
incredibly weird. The fact that I never saw Mixon get the ball because I thought like Mixon like there's a reason why in fantasy projections he was like a first second rounder in
mhm.
everyone.
By the way, it's interesting too that now Marvin Lewis, of course, had a very long tenure with the Bengals, and Andy Dalton had Marvin Lewis for his entire career. And it's funny that in his first game with somebody else running the show, Andy Dalton has a career high in passing yards.
Yeah, 400
Um,
plus.
and on top of that, no AJ Green.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, the Bengals, Boyd and Ross were. Oh, I don't think anyone ever doubted that John Ross and Tyler Boyd. Like John Ross has always been this deep threat guy, and Boyd has always
I'm
looked like
sorry.
a wide receiver one.
I'm sorry. Are you about to tell me that no one ever doubted John Ross?
No, Tyler Boyd, but John. No one doubted the strength of the wide receivers behind AJ Green, and that there would be enough
Yeah,
power
okay.
over there. That's what I'm
They
saying.
have a good receiving core, but I don't think anybody expected John Ross to break out in this game like he did.
Yeah, he
Um,
got 12 targets and he only had 7. I didn't think it was a breakout. I just think that's the type of player he is where if you get him deep,
2 long touchdowns in the
if you
game.
get him deep, you're going to get rewarded. And
Um,
that thing is that's I think their entire offense is an offense that based themselves on giving the ball to Ross deep. Like they're going to do a lot of they probably will try to do this thing where they run up the middle a few times and do these short passes, get it Boyd on an out route or whatever, and then they just throw a go route on Ross and just throw it deep and hope to God he gets it. Because if that
mhm.
might just be the entire way they strategize their offense, and if
Yeah,
that's the way they're playing, then Ross is like whoever has them on fantasy. Good job, I guess.
yeah. Um, about Seattle, I will say, and it was hard to tell. The offensive line looked bad, and it's hard to know after one game if it's the offensive line or if the Bengals just had a good pass rush. Um, and we'll find out as we see more games with these two teams. But that's a very bad sign for Seattle because, of course, that was a problem for years. It finally looked fixed the last season or two, and now it looks bad again.
It
And that's
wasn't fixed all
concerning.
of last season. Remember, the beginning of the season was so rough for him. That was like
That's
what
true.
everyone was talking about. Remember,
That's true. Yep.
I think it does
Um,
start out rough for the Seahawks mostly, but again, the Seahawks have always had incredibly good discipline with their coaching staff. So,
yeah.
and I think scheme blocking all.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
despite all that, the Seahawks still won this game. They ended up winning 21-20. I saw a tweet from, I think it was from Rosenthal, but I could be wrong. It might have been Sessler, but it was along the lines of if you were watching this game without context of knowing who the Seahawks and Bengals are, you would think that the Seahawks were a scrappy underdog that stole a win away from a far superior Bengals team,
Yeah.
and that's really how it looked. And that was that was a big surprise. I mean, I kind of expected the Seahawks to look good, and they
No,
just
I
didn't.
didn't. I think the Seahawks always start slow a bit.
They do seem to start slow. Um,
They're like the Eagles do as well, and that's why I didn't was like, well, yeah, the Eagles are behind. I thought that they might lose this, and it's also an NFC East game. Surprised they
mhm.
came back in it. Um,
Yeah,
and all these teams that are starting slow have a win basically. The Patriots, the Seahawks. I mean,
yeah.
the Eagles. I would argue the Packers.
The Packers too. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Um,
Like teams in the NFL, teams that need to ramp up are winning games.
mm-hmm.
Whereas you have Andy Reid's offense, and they're winning as per
Yep.
usual. They usually win early. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Rams looked a little shaky, but they still come out with a win. The
Yep.
Chargers always start out strong, and they got to win barely. Like they're this narratives are starting to break. It seems.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, the Bengals. I mean, they're 0-1, and they really outplayed the Seahawks in this game. And it'll be interesting to see how both of these teams look going forward. Um. But moving on to the game that I think you wanted to talk about a while back, the Lions at the Cardinals. Um. By the way, I want to remind you of something you said on this podcast a while back, and this is a direct quote from Bryce. I want to watch every fourth quarter the Lions play. You said it. and
Not like this.
the
Not like this. Wasn't supposed to be like this. It was. I mean, I watched this fourth quarter, but not for that reason.
I know, I know. Yeah, and I mean, they were up. What was it? It was 24-6, right? in the fourth quarter,
Oh
and
my god.
then they
Oh
allowed
my
the
god.
Cardinals to score 18 unanswered points in the fourth. Um, and then I mean, let's just go over what happened the rest of the way. So the Lions offense just did absolutely nothing in the fourth quarter. The Cardinals got a field goal, which at the time the broadcasters were like criticizing the decision to kick the field goal when you're down 18. But then they get a touchdown, which a pass to David Johnson over the middle, which was a nice pass. Johnson just going right up the seam. And then they're down 8 after that, and they get a touchdown to Larry Fitzgerald and a 2-point conversion to Christian Kirk, and they tie the game. And then it heads to overtime, and the Cardinals win the toss. And you're like, oh my God, they're really going to do it.
Oh
The
no, the
Lions
Lions, they've done
are
it
going to
again.
completely choke this. And then the Lions got several massive breaks in their favor in overtime. Um, the first one being the Cardinals down in the red zone. Kyler Murray scramble drill runs out of bounds, and a no call on a late hit bails out the Lions, because it would have been first and goal from like the 3 yard line if they had thrown the flag on that. And I feel like the Cardinals punch it in at that point.
Which
So
would have been the funniest way to end the game.
that was the first massive break, was the no call on the late hit. And honestly, there was a call too in the Vikings Falcons game that I didn't mention, where the Falcons got called for a late hit on Dalvin Cook, where clearly the defender made contact with Cook before he stepped out of bounds, and it was still called a late hit. And then this one, Murray was clearly out, and it was not called. So I feel like this needs to be a point of emphasis for officials, is getting these calls right, because they're big calls. They can have a massive impact on the game. But
I
anyway,
want to point it out, by the way, that both Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield start their rookie seasons with a tie.
I didn't even think of that. Wow.
So
Huh. Interesting.
isn't that funny?
Hmm. Huh. Okay. Hang on a second.
I don't think it was Baker's first game. Just Baker's first
I
start.
think, yeah, it was week. Oh no, it was week 1, but that was not. Baker did not start. That's right.
But
Tyrod
they
Taylor
did, but
started.
he did. His team started
Yeah.
with a tie.
Um, Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze there. That's why I said hang on for a second and turned off my mic. But anyway, um,
Food
so
for thought.
the next massive break that the Lions got is after the Cardinals kick a field goal, of course, with the stupid overtime rules the way they are. Lions get a possession.
And they shortened overtime too.
I know that's the dumb part, really. Honestly, the whole thing is dumb, but that's a soliloquy for another time. Um, so the next break the Lions get was a pass play to Marvin Jones, which was ruled a catch on the field, and it's really unclear whether he actually got his hands under the ball, and there was no replay angle where you could really tell conclusively, so of course the call stood. So the break that they get there is that if that is called incomplete, it probably stays incomplete. They don't they don't reverse that call. And like Marvin Jones made a great play. So like, not to take anything away from him, but that's a call that could easily have gone either way. So that's a break that goes in the Lions' favor. So they kick a
Another thing I want to mention, because you mentioned
Yeah.
the Lions tandem.
Mhm.
The two receivers that led the Lions today were T.J.
Yeah,
Hawkinson and Danny Amendola.
I know.
No,
Yeah,
I,
well,
I
I'll
believe.
talk.
I mean, Kenny Galladay got the same amount of receptions as T.J. Hawkinson, by the way, like
Yeah.
targets. It's just that he only completed 4 of them.
Hmm.
Galladay
Yeah,
would be good.
I'll talk more about that in a minute. But
Yeah.
so the Lions then tie it with a field goal, and they kick off to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are progressing down the field, and on third and seven, a pass is deflected at the line, which is the fourth time in the game that Kyler Murray had a pass deflected at the line. And on fourth and seven, they're outside field goal range. Kingsbury decides to punt the ball and play for a tie. And I I understand the decision when you have a rookie quarterback in his first start and you're a head coach making your first or coaching your first game as a coach in the NFL. I understand that, but I absolutely hate the decision.
It's
You
fourth
got to
and
play.
seven. It's just
You got to play for a win. And obviously, if fourth and seven, if you don't get it, you're setting up the Lions where they only need one first down to be able to win the game. But uh, I, I hate the decision so much.
I don't think it's
Um,
Cliff Kingsbury's fault. I think it's the rules' fault.
it's on the rules too. Um, and I hate these overtime rules. I hate the shortened overtime. It was a half measure when they introduced this last season. It's just so dumb. But I mean, really, do they want more ties? Because that's what it's creating. Like, is that the goal? Is to create more ties? It's just so stupid.
You
But
know,
anyway,
tying a game is like kissing your sister. That's what they say.
I think that's exactly what Dan Hansa said, actually. But, um,
And I mean, no one wants to kiss their sister. So
hmm but anyway, so yeah, they play for the tie, and then they almost win anyway because who was it? Who was the player that dropped the pick? Shoot,
I can't
Cardinals
remember.
dropped the interception. Oh, it was Tremaine Brock who dropped the interception. I mean, it was a room service interception, like as easy as they come. Just a bad throw to the sideline, badly underthrown. He got there and it just went off his hands. And if he hangs on to that, they're in position for a game winning field goal with less than a minute left in overtime. And as it was, the Lions ran, I think, two plays after that, and time expired, and it was a tie. And just a game that, I mean, the Lions certainly didn't deserve to win the
But
way
neither
that
the
they
Cardinals.
allowed the Cardinals to come back. The Cardinals did not deserve to win for the terrible first half of football that they put together in that game. Really, honestly, a terrible first three quarters.
Both people
Um,
deserve the tie.
yeah.
At the
And
end of the day,
Kyler Murray looked awful in the first half. It this offense that is supposed to be new and exciting, there was nothing new about this in this game. It was just not good. It just looked ineffective. And Murray had, like I mentioned, four passes deflected at the line of scrimmage, and that's a concern. I mean, I know that the big thing with Murray, the main concern with him was his height, or one of the main concerns. And when you're getting passes batted down, like
that
obviously that can be overcome with time. You learn to find those throwing lanes so that you're not getting guys, knocking your passes down. But that's a concern immediately for the Cardinals. Um, but anyway, that's all I have on the Cardinals. As for my prediction of the Lions having the top wide receiver duo, I should have left it open to tight ends. I made I made such an error in judgment in excluding tight ends from that. Um, because Hawkinson is a stud. But um, that's all I really have to say about that. So moving on. Um,
Yep.
so the New York Giants played a team. Did they even play a team? Who did they play against?
Um, we're even gonna do this. All right. All right. Dak Prescott played really good. There we go. Got it out.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. All right, I can say
Yeah,
sentences.
he looked good in this game, really good. And the Giants' defense
When
looked
people
bad.
say,
So,
I mean, this is gonna be. I don't know how much you're gonna like this, but when people, no one can be the next whoever, right?
mm-hmm.
No one person can be the next someone else because they are themselves, right? But if you were to tell me of all the players, right, who in the NFL that play quarterback who looks most like Brady, and I say
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott,
Hmm.
it's not incorrect. I don't believe.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's it's uh, it's. I want to say it's true. There's anyone who could pass the torch.
Hmm.
I mean,
Interesting. I don't have a comment on it. Um, I don't know. I've never liked Dak Prescott, but only I think really mainly because he plays for a team that I don't like. So
yeah,
I
he's
can't.
a.
I'm very very biased against all things
I
Dallas
mean, Randall
Cowboys.
Cobb scored another touchdown in a Cowboy end zone.
Yeah, I mean Randall Cobb looked good. Again, I week 1 is a weird week because like you want to say that we're now certain about things because we've seen real football being played,
But you're not.
and to an extent that is true, but for some things it's really hard to tell. And
Dallas looked
this
fire.
Giants defense looked terrible, and it's hard to tell whether more credit should go to the Dallas offense or the Giants defense for that terrible game. And I think I mean, obviously, it's some of both. The Dallas offense looked great, the Giants defense looked bad, but it's hard to tell who is more responsible. And we won't know until we see more games from these teams. Uh,
Oh man,
so yeah.
you're just a hater. Dak Prescott's legit.
No, he had a great game. I can't argue with that. He played really well.
Can I make a
Um,
prediction?
sure.
Dak Prescott will have 3 more 400-yard games.
Hmm. I mean, I could see it happening. They do play the Giants again, so that's one. Um, but yeah, I could see that happening. He obviously got off to a great start. I don't think you could ask for anything more. Um, the Giants, by the way, did go right down the field on their first possession of the game and scored a touchdown, and then Dallas came back to tie it, and then it was just all Dallas from there on. Um, so
True.
yeah, I mean, it was just sorry, I got distracted. Somebody texted me.
Fair.
But yeah, the Cowboys looked very good both sides of the ball. The Giants looked bad both sides of the ball.
Which
I mean,
makes you
Eli had some good throws and he had some bad throws. I mean,
Eli Manning was Eli
it's
Manning.
very clear. It's very clear that Daniel Jones is going to take over this team at some point, and probably sooner than later. Um. Anyway, should we move on from this game?
You
I don't
really
think.
don't want to talk about the Cowboys.
Well, if you have more to say, say it. I don't
uh,
have much more to say about this game.
the Cowboys are just a really good team in both sides of the ball, more than I think the Giants are a bad team on both sides of the ball. But that's just how I think. It's hard to judge after one game.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so moving on to, I believe, the last game
Of the
of
afternoon.
Sunday
No,
of the afternoon prior to the Sunday night game, um, which is 49ers Buccaneers. Um, so I mean, we have the 49ers predicted to go 14-2, the Buccaneers predicted to go 2-14. So far, so good. Um,
all
uh,
right.
I want to point out what Dan Hans has pointed out about this game, which is that in the first half there were 4 fumbles, 2 interceptions, 1 blocked punt, and 4 touchdowns negated by penalty. Um,
What a great display of
just
football.
an extremely sloppy game for both teams. And uh, by the way, those 4 touchdowns negated by penalty, 2 were caught by Cameron Brate for the Buccaneers, and the other 2 were caught by George Kittle for the
Yep.
49ers.
Yeah.
Uh,
Funny. I had like 3. Honestly, if I had, there were like 3 or 4 plays this weekend that if they were not negated by penalties, I beat you.
yeah, I know. It was it was close. I really thought that the matchups favored you a lot this week, and I
Oh,
got a lot of lucky breaks this week.
you had Pat Mahomes.
I had Mahomes, yeah.
40 points.
Mhm. Anyway, so this was a sloppy game for both teams, and ultimately, Jameis Winston just lost this game for his team. Um, he threw 2 pick sixes, and the Buccaneers defense also had a pick six, but he threw 2 pick sixes late in the game, and just a lot of bad decisions. He lost the game for the Buccaneers, and
Bruce Arians has been known to fix
that's
quarterbacks, but you cannot fix this. I mean,
yeah,
I love the Dan Hanses quote of in the debate of who to pick over Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston. The answer
none.
was no.
Wasn't it Hansis? I was thinking that was Westling, but I don't remember.
Either. I think it.
It was somebody. It was somebody from the podcast. But anyway, um,
The answer's still
yeah,
no.
there's nothing more to say about this game. I mean, the 49ers did not look great, but they looked all right, and the Buccaneers looked bad. So
Garoppolo doesn't look like the guy we think he is.
yeah, I'm a
No
little
one has
concerned
been
about that.
paid more for doing less. To be fair.
That's true. Um, well, no football player.
No football player. Sam Bradford maybe.
Sam Bradford did some stuff. I mean, granted, he got paid a lot, but I feel like he did some stuff. Um, but yeah, I agree with that statement that no player has been paid more for doing less than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
Um,
So
so yeah, that's concerning for the 49ers, but you know what? A win is a win, and they could still, their offense, maybe it's a slow start for them, but they could still get on track, and
I mean,
they could
Kittle
still
is their
be
offense, and when you have 2 touchdowns negated by penalties to your offense,
3 actually. There was a third one later on a running
don't
play.
remind me.
Well, hey, that one was a running play, so it didn't affect your fantasy team. But that one, yeah. So sloppy performance. Hopefully for the 49ers, they can clean it up. And hopefully for the Buccaneers, they can clean it up. But I really, my money is against the Buccaneers. Um,
We'll see this Thursday, right?
we'll see Thursday night. Anyway, so that's it for all of the afternoon games. So
Now we have
moving on to Sunday night.
murder. Moving
Steel,
on to the murder.
Steelers at Patriots. I mean, what is there to say? 33-3. The Patriots dominated every facet of this game. I Let's move on. I don't. There's nothing else to say about it. Like that. There's literally nothing else to say. The Patriots, their defense looks great. I mean, they looked like they're right where they left off, which was they were very good towards the end of last year and in the playoffs, and they are right back. Um, and the offense looks good too, and now they're going to be adding Antonio Brown. So like I don't know what there is to say. The Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl once again.
We are a sad. It is a sad day.
I I really hope that I'm wrong and this just fails and somehow blows up in the Patriots' faces. But like
I mean,
they look
Sony Michelle looked terrible. 15 carries, 14 yards.
but
Like
they
he
didn't
was.
need him.
What?
They didn't need him.
They
Like
did. It didn't matter if they didn't
their
need him.
offense, their offense, their game plan in this game was we don't need to run the ball. Let's just use these short screen passes to James White and Rex Burkhead. They identified that that was what the Steelers could not defend, and they were correct. And they just won the game without any effort. Like it was way too easy. The Steelers did not even put up a fight. Like it was just a bad game of football, and I will not be watching any more Patriots games this season, as I've said.
But yeah, I mean, watching the best team in
Okay,
football play,
in the playoffs, I can't not watch a playoff game, so I'll watch that. But I'm not
or
going to
even
watch another
playoff
Patriots
towards the
regular
end of the
season game.
season, please watch the Patriots.
Nope.
Please,
I'm
I will
not going to
make
do it.
you. I will glue. I'll a clockwork orange you.
No, your job on this podcast from now on is to recap all the Patriots games because I'm not going to watch them. I'm not even going to watch the highlights. I am just going to ignore the Patriots. The Cowboys, you're back in. Patriots are out. um,
Friendship ended with Patriots. Now Cowboys are my best friend.
well, I have to have 31 teams, so I can only kick out one at a time, and it's the
Oh, of
Patriots.
course, yeah. That's the rule.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, how else would it work? Um, so yeah, the Steelers and Patriots. If you have any other thoughts, please share them. But I am ready to move on.
I'm fine to move to Monday night. We have let's talk about the one game I actually didn't get to catch, which was the one I fell asleep for
Okay,
before.
so the second game,
Yeah.
Raiders Broncos, not a terribly exciting game, but surprising in that the Raiders looked just like a much better team than the Broncos, and we did not have them figured to do that. um, they
Josh
just
Jacobs, was he good?
he was very good. Um, he ran well.
Another underprivileged unicorns guy.
Yeah, underprivileged unicorns are the big winners of the week. Um, it's
Wonder
yeah.
who's the loser. I have my
um,
roommate right next to me. That's why I looked at him.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, the Raiders look pretty good. The Broncos, just their offense looked bad. They couldn't move the ball, and when they did move the ball, they were settling for field goals, and the Raiders were scoring touchdowns. It was just not good. Um, I kind of tuned out most of this game. I had it. I was just playing it on mute, and I was listening to the album that you recommended.
Ooh.
Um, and so I didn't really pay too close attention to this game, but it was not a good game for the Broncos. So the Raiders already ruining our predictions
By being a good team.
by
Bro,
being a
they're a good
passive.
team against the Broncos. That's not. Didn't we have them splitting?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
The Raiders' one win was coming against the Titans, um, and then they were losing the other 15. So
Oh.
they've already messed us up there. Um, but anyway, let's move on. The earlier game, the Texans at the Saints. This was an exciting game, and you
Specifically in the
saw more of
fourth.
the game than I did. You saw more of it than I did, so I'll let you go.
Deshaun Watson looks like he's like top 5, top 3 quarterbacks in the league. He's so much better. He played better than Drew Brees did in this game. He
Okay,
and he
yeah.
didn't even have Kiki Kuti, who I actually
Hmm.
think is really vital for this offense because he's going to play in the slot, and they need a slot receiver like him to have these. And like they need a guy that's dynamic in the slot more so. And I guess Kenny Stills was the guy who was playing that role in this game, but like it was funny also watching the ex Browns backfield of Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde play. And like
Yeah.
Carlos Hyde looked back to form. Like it's clear that my
Well,
team, the Jaguars, did not know how to utilize the strengths of this. But to be fair, the Texans have the way they scheme their O line, anyone could run behind them. Like you could get any running back behind there, and the holes that you give some of these players,
mm,
wow, like they can just roam through them.
mm.
Um, but I mean, I guess we can now both talk about this incredibly exciting fourth quarter. The
Yeah.
like Deshaun Watson proving again that he's like a great quarterback, and then
Well,
immediately his defense letting him down.
yeah.
He's
So
too good almost. He was too good.
first of all, I mean it. So down 6 points, they they get the touchdown on the long pass to Kenny Stills. They got the ball with just under a minute left in the game, and it was a two-play drive. Two long passes. I forget who caught the first one. Was it Hopkins? I think it.
Yes,
I think it was
yes.
Hopkins, and then the long touchdown to Kenny Stills. So then extra point to take the lead, misses it badly, but gets bailed out by a roughing the kicker
I
call.
remember that. I was like, what is this game?
Then
Uh,
then they make the second try. So they're up by a point, and then with like 40 seconds or something left in the game, Drew Brees goes to work. And by the way, it was terrible clock management by the Saints, um, because they got a completed pass
yeah.
where the receiver got down with about 15 seconds left on the clock, and they still had the one timeout. And it was a longer pass down the field, and they ran up to clock it and clocked it with 6 seconds left. They should have taken the timeout right there because
Yeah,
with
what you
six
do is you
seconds
take the
left,
timeout the second the receiver goes down. Then you go
right?
for
Because the next play they had to run basically a quick slant, get down immediately, and call their timeout in order to have time for the field goal. If you call the timeout first, you have time to get up and clock it on the next play. You know what I'm saying? Like after
yeah.
the quick slant.
No,
And
I
it's
thought the
much
same thing.
easier. It's much easier to get up and clock it after the quick slant
Because
because
you're leaving basically
it's less distance for your players to
you are
run to get
time
back up to
limiting
the line.
yourself on the next play. By what they
Right.
did was they gave themselves only space 6 seconds to run one play,
Yeah,
whereas
it
they
was
could have
terrible
given them
clock
15
management.
seconds to run one play, and then the spike could have come at any time.
Right. Terrible, terrible clock management, but it worked out because Will Lutz nailed the field goal from 58 yards. And that was it. I mean, the Saints
This was the
won.
best game of the weekend,
Yes, I think it was.
and it was
Although
of
Bengals
two
Seahawks, Bengals
playoff teams.
Seahawks.
No, because I don't think the teams were as good quality wise.
Okay, fair enough.
That I think that these
I
are
will agree with you.
two
This
better
was
teams playing a closer game, actually. playing better football, and it coming down to the wire where the lead changes 3 times in the last minute. That's a better game.
Yeah, yeah, that I agree. This was a very exciting game, and
This is what football's
probably
about.
this will probably be on the short list for best games of the year at the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
Um,
This
and
is by far top 10 games of the year. If you could simulate the rest of the games for the year, this is already in the top 10. So it's one of those.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
doesn't matter how
Um,
these teams go for the rest of the year. This was a great game of football.
yes, it was.
We should put a
And
list, by the way.
yeah, so far this is number one. Um, and there's really no other candidates, I don't think, in week one. I mean, I personally love the Packers Bears game, but I mean, it was 10-3. Like, that's not going to make any list.
It was a great
Um,
defensive battle, but it that holds no merit to what we got on
yeah.
Monday night. A Monday night primetime game. This is without Jason Wooden, by the way. Thank you, Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention so in this game, ESPN had a new graphic in the first half for the down and distance. And somebody made the terrible decision of making the down and distance on the scoreboard yellow. So every time they changed it, it looked like there was a flag. And so to ESPN's credit, though, people on Twitter were calling them out and saying how terrible this graphic was, and they changed it at halftime. They went back to their old scoreboard.
That's
at
funny.
halftime of this
I
game.
can't. I've never. Usually, companies just are like, "Nah, fuck you. Let's see how they are."
Yeah, exactly. I'm really amazed that it changed that quickly. And I saw somebody comment on Twitter, too bad they didn't react that quickly with Jason Witten.
Yeah, I think.
um, but anyway, that was just an interesting note about this game. But yeah, I mean, that's all the games for week one. We got 9 of the 16 results right, so just over half. 10 if the Bears beat the Packers later in the year.
So now you're gonna be looking at that game like half rooting for if the Bears win, you'll be like, well, at least I was right.
Yeah, exactly. I can't lose. Um, so,
or can you
so
only
yeah.
lose?
No,
No.
no, I can't lose. If the Packers win, then the Packers win. If the Packers lose, then I was right about my prediction. So I can't lose. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I did want to point out the prediction that I made in our last podcast that Matt LaFleur would be the last of these rookie head coaches standing. That he would survive the longest of the 8 coaches. Through 1 week, Matt LaFleur is 1-0. The other 7 coaches are 0-6-1. And they got outscored by a combined total of 103 points. 222 to 119. Just saying, right now, I'm feeling all right about that prediction.
I mean, I'm giving credit, I guess, for 1 week.
Yeah. I mean, Matt LaFleur has twice the record of the other 6 coaches combined right now. So yeah. And I mean, thank God the Cardinals tied so that I could say that. Because otherwise,
you'd have an infinitely better record then.
2 times 0 is 0. So if the Cardinals had lost, then
it'd be an infinitely better record.
But anyway, that's it for football. We didn't really talk at all up top because we just kind of dove into football right away. But what have you been up to?
What have I been up to?
Actually, you know what? I just thought of this. Let's do the music discussion and save what have you been up to for the end, because that's a much better way to close out the podcast.
Fair. I agree.
Okay.
I'm going to put on both albums.
Yeah, let's jump into music discussion.
Would you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Down on the Upside by
Hmm.
Soundgarden. Their less popular release, their longer release, I believe.
I think you're right about that.
Um, I can, I will say that I can see why this album is not only less known but less praised as their super unknown
Right.
1994 release. However, it was
Well, I mean,
interesting.
Super Unknown has like their three biggest hits on it.
It's not. I don't think it's just the hits. Like my favorite song growing up, especially, were like Spoon Man and My Wave. And is Spoon Man a hit for them? I guess
I think so.
because when I think of the hits on the album, I think Black Hole Sun, Fell on
Black
Black
Hole
Days, and The
Sun,
Day I Try
Fell
to
on Black
Live.
Days. Yep, those are the three I was thinking of.
But Spoon Man, Limo Wreck, My Wave were always like those were the ones I always gravitated towards more.
All
As
good songs.
yeah, I never really had the same experience with this one. It was more. It was a lot more blender, a lot less diverse. More of the guitar riffs seemed forgettable and seemed watered. Uh, I was left more unsatisfied, and I had a similar approach to this album as I did with Tool's new release, which I was very disappointed on, and that is why I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Not to say that I didn't like some of the songs on there though.
Okay. Fair enough. Um, so would you like me to go now, or do you
Oh
have anything
yes,
else?
the
Okay.
Texas Jerusalem Crossroads. How did you
I
feel?
okay. Before we get into this, okay, like 3 minutes into this album, it occurred to me that have you and I ever discussed religion at all?
Not really. I'm not a religious person at all, and I don't think you are either.
No, I am not. Um, in
Yeah,
fact, I grew up without religion in my life,
me either.
and
That's I think both my parents are agnostic, so
yeah, and my parents as well. So, um, that's interesting. I actually don't meet too many people like me.
I didn't
So
know that you. I actually did not know your parents weren't religious. That's
yeah,
actually kind of
well,
funny. How
it's
do
it's
we
a
not know
long
this about each other?
it's a long backstory, and I don't want to get into that right now. But um,
Tragic
I think
backstory of Ryan.
I think the reason we didn't know that about each other is just that religion is like of so little importance in our lives that we just don't talk about it.
Exactly. It's like the
At least
agnostic
that's the
dilemma.
case for me. That's the
Yeah,
case for me.
I
But
never have any experiences with religion outside of basically this album. Not even gonna lie.
um, okay, so I guess I guess that kind of puts this in context a little bit better for me. But I do generally find religious things to be off-putting.
Yeah,
Um,
in a sense, it's for me too. I have that weird like the cult mentality, where I'm just
yeah,
like everyone's too infatuated with it. It gets creepy.
and like for anybody listening to this, which is nobody, I I don't mean to say I don't like respect your right to have religion in your life. Whatever, do what makes you happy. I don't care. But
It's more so we view religion the same
I
way
just
you would review another religion. It's different. It's odd. You know?
yeah, it's
That
sort of
makes
like that is the way to think about it. Is like atheism is its own religion in a sense, where
in
like
this argument.
we have the same sort of contempt for all religions that you do for other religions. If you're, for example, if you're Christian, the same way you feel about,
The
Islam
practices of
or
Islam, yeah.
Judaism or whatever, that's how we feel about all religion.
It's
Um,
just I don't get it. It's an
yeah.
I don't get it.
Um, exactly. Wow, it's really weird to like talk to somebody who understands my viewpoint on this. um, that's so unusual. I actually, one of my friends, not that long ago, I we were talking about this, and she said, "Wow, I've never met anybody like that before who didn't have like any religion in their life at any point." And I'm like, "Huh." I mean, that's just how my
Yeah,
life
I've
is.
never. Yeah, I've
Like,
just never really. It's just never been for me, and I've been living happily. I guess it's
yeah, I
just
know. Anyway, back to this album. So, like I said, religious things do tend to be off-putting to me, and so I was kind of off-put by this album. Um, that said, like, just because it has the religious undertones doesn't mean that I can't enjoy it. So, like, I was still willing to give it a chance even after I figured out what it was, where I'm like, okay, clearly this is a concept album and it's
yeah.
all about God. I'm like, okay, I can still
That's
listen
the
to it and
premise. Yeah,
appreciate.
that's yeah.
I can still listen to it and appreciate the music. However, a lot of these songs, I just did not like the style. For some reason,
What?
there was something about it that I didn't like, and maybe it's the vocal delivery on some of the tracks. Like, and granted, some of them I did like, some of them were very good, um, but I don't know. Most of it, for some reason, I really didn't like. And I don't know. I know that you told me you thought I would like this, and
I thought you
kind of
would,
I'm kind of surprised that I really didn't.
because you
Um,
can see where I was coming from when I said
because
that, right?
the other albums that you've been like certain about that I would like, I did like, and this one, for some reason, was an exception. Um, so yeah, I really didn't like it that much. Also, it I mean, the length of the album also is. I don't mind long albums, but if I'm not into it, it's really, really tedious.
Fair.
So that was another factor. But there were moments in there where I did enjoy it, where I kind of got into it.
For sure. All right, I'm kind of sad, but I guess yeah.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah.
that's this.
You asked for my
Yeah,
opinion,
I know.
so
No.
there it is.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So would you like to move on to next time's recommendations?
Sure. I guess that one was better than 100 gex for you.
Uh, that's a low bar, but yeah, that it was better than all the Gex.
Aw.
Um.
I knew you weren't gonna like it, but I
By
still
the
had to.
way, just I have sort of this morbid curiosity now. Let me know when they come out with another anything.
100 gex.
Yes,
Okay.
I just like the masochist part of me has to hear it. Like I hated it so much, but I want to hear more at the same time. So anyway, let's move on to next time's recommendations.
All right. Well, the album that I'm gonna suggest for you is a very obscure release. Very more. I think this one's more obscure than Live to Experience.
Wonderful.
You're getting deep cuts still. If
Okay.
my OBS doesn't crash, thank you. Okay. Um, this album is a mixture of. I've never heard these genres mixed together in this way, like jazz with this kind of progressive rock and metalish style. I don't know if you've ever heard the band Opeth, but they
Uh,
remind me of that
okay.
in a lot of ways. They're called Maudlin of the Well. That is spelled. I'll spell it out to you in Discord.
Got it.
Because and the album name is Bath.
Yeah, Google suggested that already when I started typing it. Okay.
Yeah, Maudlin of the Well, Bath. This one, hopefully you enjoy, but it will be a little bit of a heavier release. However,
Okay. Well, all right. I mean, once again, I've never heard of it. So, all right.
I mean, to be fair, up until like a month and a half ago, I hadn't either. But a lot of my friends, this is a top 5 album for them. For me, I like it a lot, but I've listened to it like 2, 3, 4 times right now. So still need to listen to it a few more times to see how good. Like I haven't had the click yet, I guess. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So my recommendation for next time is an album that I'm certain that you've heard this,
Oh,
but I listened to it recently for the first time in a while, and I was like, I didn't realize, I guess, or I just didn't remember how good the album was. And that album is The Color and the Shape by the Foo Fighters.
color and the. Here we go. Oh, this one.
It is
It's
their
the
second
Everlong one.
studio. It is the Everlong one. It's their second studio album. Of course, it has Everlong, which is probably their best known song.
I don't know if it's
Um,
their best known song, but it's by far their best song.
what is their best known song then?
They have a lot.
I mean, they do.
The Pretender. Yes, it's the Pretender.
The
Yep,
Pretender. Okay,
it is the
yeah,
Pretender.
I could see that.
I mean, yeah, it is.
But like, yeah, this is their second album. It's from 1997. It's the first album with Dave Grohl and other people. Um,
This one has Learn to Fly, right?
yeah, I believe it does.
Remember that from Rock Band?
Where is Learn to Fly? Is it not on this one?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, it's not. Which album was that on?
The one with the tattoo on the back.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. I think that's the next album after this one, but no, this one does have Monkey Wrench.
Don't want that one is a bop, a bang. I love that song actually.
My Hero's on it as well. Um,
That one's a little overplayed.
yeah, Walking After You is a good one. Um, although, okay, there's two different versions of that song, and I actually kind of like them both. Um, but whatever. Uh, I'm not sure which one was actually on the album.
Regardless, yeah. I haven't listened to this in a while, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was too, where I just like hadn't listened to it in a while, and I kind of forgot that it was really good. And maybe you're in the same boat, and that's why I decided to suggest it.
All right.
So
Yeah.
as you can see, this is the reason why I was saying we need to save something for the end of
Yeah,
the
because it kind of just
podcast.
abruptly ends like, well, all right, peace, bye.
So I think from now on, instead of doing the how have
Introduction.
you been, what have you been up top, we should do that at the end.
So yeah,
Um,
what have you been? What have you been up to?
um, I mean, not a ton,
Have a
but
job?
uh, in the process. um, not something I really want to get into right now, but
Fair-
I am I'm in the process. But anyway,
All
yeah,
right.
one of the things that I've been into recently, and the reason that I tell you about this is I kind of think you would enjoy this. Now, I remember you telling me uh, a while back. I think this is when we were in St. Louis. Is y- I was explaining some opening line to you, and you said that you like listening to people who are enthusiastic about what they're talking about
Yeah,
and who clearly have a passion for what they're trying to
I don't
teach
cook
or
at all,
talk
but
about.
I watch this YouTube channel called Adam Ragusier who talks about food,
Hmm.
and it's amazing. I love it. It's one of my favorite channels.
Yeah. So I really feel like you would enjoy watching coverage of now the recent tournament that was played was the Sinkfield Cup in St. Louis, and I watched all of it. I watched all the coverage of all 11 rounds and the playoff.
The
um
for chess, I assume, right?
for chess,
Yes.
yes. And the St. Louis Chess Club does these broadcasts of they have like GMs talking about super GMs playing their games as, they're live. And of course, I didn't watch all of it live, but I caught up on all of it. Um, and it was really fascinating analysis. And I feel like I gained some chess knowledge from having done it, which is cool. Um,
Yes.
and
This is the reason why, by the way, I got a literal coach to coach me in League.
yeah,
Like, I mean, this is a guy who's went to the semifinals of the World Championship. And,
hmm
I mean, he's kind of been ousted from the scene more so because he was with an organization that basically told the company that owns League of Legends to shove it up their ass.
hmm
Because they went for franchising, and this franchising system is basically making it so every team is losing a bunch of money. Though esports exists in a bubble. I don't want to get into the economy of it, but essentially he was on that team, so he's been ousted from the team. So what he and
uh-huh.
also he he's the type of person who protects rookies and protects young kids getting into it, which is
Hmm.
controversial because a lot of people love watching veterans play, the players that they've watched for years play, right? That is the and all these imports, they get all this hype, all this traction, all this news out, all drama and stuff, and that's what basically drives a lot of the traction of it. Where he's more like, no, I want this rookie talent. I want him who is. A lot of times, these rookies are objectively better players, and that's essentially why he does things like coaching because he doesn't have a job. Actually, he doesn't even have a place where he technically lives. He lives in Airbnbs, and because he would have had to be in London, in order to have housing in London, you need to have a job, and the way that his income comes in from like coaching and stuff doesn't technically count as a job for the UK.
hmm
So what's what it was super interesting actually doing that. One thing that you can take in chess as well, and a lot of things in life, is that if you have money or whatever currency built up in a game or anything, you're losing. You always should be spending money. You always should be at $0 or whatever, because that's what every pro player will tell you in anything is that you need any money that you have in your bank is stuff that you're not using. So there's no point in having it because it's essentially useless in that
Hmm.
case. Uh
Interesting.
Stuff like that. Stuff like just you always can do something. You're playing against players that don't know what they're doing. You can always do something. There's always more you can be doing. And just like always looking for plays, even though necessarily they shouldn't exist, they will present themselves. Like putting yourself in situations like that, I just wasn't thinking of. That's what I've been doing, by the way, as well as watching a bunch of football. I've been watching so much
Yeah.
competitive League of Legends. EU had their grand finals, and G2 is looking for a Grand Slam this year. Grand Slam, by the way, is there are two splits for each region, the spring and summer split. You have to win both of those. In between the two, there's a world championship called the Mid-Season Invitational, where the number one seed from each region comes. And G2 won that, the first European team to have ever won that. So if they win the world championship now, and it's going to go on for all of October, they'd be the first team to have won the Grand Slam. And that's
Hmm.
just because teams don't stay number one for that long ever. Even in football, like it's very rare for a team. No team has really ever been the best team for every single week of football, right?
Uh, well,
Even like
I mean,
even the
the
Patriots
72
lost.
the 72 Dolphins, I suppose, but
But like even then, there could be arguments for that. This week they underperformed, and this other team like whatever. It's
yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're even if you win every single game, like you don't play every, especially because this G2 lineup, because they're so ahead of everyone. They actually got zero scrims because they were literally trolling scrimmages with other teams. They were just not trying at all, so they thought why bother playing with these guys,
Hmm.
which actually almost cost them the final. They went to 5 games, which I kind of wish they lost it because I don't know how well they're gonna. I want them to win Worlds. I want them to do that. I want Western team to win Worlds, but because of how undisciplined they've been, I'm worried.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's what I've
Yeah,
been up to.
interesting. So going back then into my thing I was
Yeah.
talking about,
Sorry, tangent for a
which
long time.
it's fine. I don't mind when you go on tangents like that. It's cool. Um, but going back to the Sinkfield Cup, which I was talking about, what ended up happening is there were a lot of draws in the tournament, which is kind of to be expected.
That's how chess kind of
Um,
works.
so it was a 12-player tournament, and it included going into the tournament the top 9 players in the world, and then the other 3 were all within the top like 18 or something. Um, so like super elite tournament, strongest tournament ever actually in terms of combined rating. Um, and anyway, hang on one second. Sorry, my dog was like starting to chew on my headphone cord. Um, anyway, so um, Magnus Carlsen, of course, is number 1 in the world, and in this tournament, of course, it's an 11-round tournament, 12 players, so everybody plays everybody once. And Magnus drew his first 9 games, and this was like a huge surprise to everybody because usually Magnus Carlsen will win a game at some point early on, and then that'll kind of set the tone for the tournament for everybody else. But it was just like everybody was drawing, and there were a couple players at +1 and 2 players at +2 going into round 10. And the 2 at +2 were Ding Liren from China and Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia. And Carlsen then won his round 10 game. So he's now +1, and the lead is still at +2.
Mm-hmm.
Nepomniachtchi draws, or excuse me, loses. So now he's back down to +1, and Ding Liren is now in first place by himself at +2 after a draw. And then in the final round, Ding Liren's still at +2, and Magnus, Nepo, and like a couple other people are all at +1. Everybody draws in the round. Everybody who matters draws in the round,
All right.
except Magnus wins. So after losing, or excuse me, after drawing 9 straight games, which is a terrible result for Magnus, he then wins his last 2 to tie for first. And they go into a blitz playoff, Carlsen and Ding Liren, and they first do a rapid playoff where they drew 2 rapid games, and then in the blitz, Ding Liren won the first game. Magnus flagged. It got into a complicated endgame position where they each had very little time, and Magnus lost on time. And then in the second blitz game, Magnus needed a win and played aggressively for a win, and Ding Liren found a beautiful tactic um, to win the game. It was a mate threat that was only stoppable by Magnus giving up his queen, and it was over. Um, so Ding Liren won the Sinkfield Cup, and it is the first time ever that Magnus Carlsen has lost a playoff in any event.
Wow.
He's in classical events, it's very common for there to be a blitz and rapid playoff like this, and Magnus Carlsen has never lost one
Yeah,
prior
because
to
he's always
this.
been good at blitz.
He's yeah, I
Yeah, that's
mean,
his like. That's the weird. Like he's always been like the best.
yeah. In fact, up until a few weeks ago, he was the highest rated player in the world in classical chess, rapid chess, and blitz chess. And then he played in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz tournament and had a terrible performance. And that was right before the Sinkfield Cup was the Rapid and Blitz. And he had a terrible performance in that, and his blitz rating dropped. So he's no longer number 1 in blitz. But um but yeah, he had never lost a playoff. And Ding Liren, and this guy Ding Liren, he is really he's something else. I honestly, if I had to bet on anybody to unseat Magnus to beat him in a world championship match right now, not knowing who's going to be the challenger, I would put my money on Dinglerin. He first, I mean, he has to get to the candidates first, and then he has to win the candidates, and then he has to win a world championship. So there's a lot of tough games in front of him, but he's what's interesting about him is that all of these top players have like a team working for them, right? So they have a second, and then they have other people, and these guys' jobs are just to like find opening novelties that the player can learn and spring on an opponent in a game and surprise them. And all of them have this sort of setup. Ding Larin has nobody. He's just he's doing this all by himself. He doesn't have a team. And that's just mind blowing that he's able to beat the top players in the world when they have like this whole support system of an entire team helping find them, opening lines and helping train them, and he's just on his own. And it's awesome. Like I would love, as an American, I would love to see one of the American players win a world championship, obviously, but if it can't if that can't happen, I'm rooting for Ding Larin. I really like him.
All
He's a
right.
fun player to watch. Also, side note about the Sinkfield Cup. Um, so Packers wide receiver Marquez Valdez Scantling, people have been calling him MVS,
Yeah.
and I can't call him MVS because every time I try to say MVS, I want to say MVL because I've heard MVL so many times from watching the Sinkfield Cup referring to French Grandmaster Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And so yeah, MVL. I can't now call Valdez Scantling MVS.
All right. So you with the chess, me with the league,
Yep. And honestly, I
me with
really
the
think
football.
I know that you're not really into chess that much anymore, but if you ever wanted to get back into it, this is a really fun way to do it. Um, Watching coverage of the top players in the world.
Well, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool. Like you learn a lot from just the analysis of these grandmasters going over these positions. It's really neat.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
And like it goes back to the whole thing of just like people who are enthusiastic and excited about, you know, talking about chess. And it's like it's just kind of cool to watch their enthusiasm for the game.
Exactly. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to is called Elitist United, and it's basically about people who only like European League of Legends, but like to the highest degree. You know, like
Mhm.
it's like you have to already like it a lot to like to be a fan of it. You know.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
plan on
Yeah,
doing
and
this
also
next week,
the
I guess.
yeah, next week. Also the Brewers are a thing, but we'll talk about them next week. Um they'll by next week they'll probably either be like right there or just completely out of the picture depending on how they do. But they're on a win streak right now, so fingers crossed. Um
All right.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody, for this long discussion about football. Um,
Yeah, I think this is a 2.5 hour episode.
yeah. Um, so yeah, we're gonna try to do these every week. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time, I guess. So I'm the owner of the Fried Liver Attack, and he's the owner of Minshew Garden. See you later.
All right. Ciao.